to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome back to the Dr. Squee Show. We are doing our journey through the legend that is Twin Peaks. Is the fact that I'm suddenly bold a clue? Who knows? It could be. We'll get into that in a second. I will welcome on my co-host for this look back in just a sec. I just wanted to take a very quick moment to thank everyone who's reached out this week. Earlier in the week, I had my appointment finally after a 2-year wait, and was finally diagnosed with ADHD. Big surprise there. But I just want to thank everyone who reached out and kind of said some really lovely things. So thank you very much. I'll probably do a video about it sometime soon. But without further ado, let's go into our look back. This is season 2, part 1 of Twin Peaks. Shit gets really weird and really fun. And there's only one man who can separate the dwarfs from the giants. Please welcome back to the Dr. Squee Show, and I'll look back on Twin Peaks if my mouse will work and allow me to add him to the stage. It is Deputy Jim to my Special Agent Squee. Jim, how are you doing, sir? Oh, sorry, we lost you, Jim.
Nothing. I just said hello.
We didn't get that. Well, I didn't get that anyway. How are you doing, sir? How's everything been your end?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, I've been watching plenty of Twin Peaks, ready to chat about it.
Man, this never before has there been a show where it ends one place on season 1, and even though it's moments afterwards in the story, everything is different in the beginning of season 2. It's just insane.
Yeah, very much so. Like, I think I said this to you during the week that obviously season 1 was hugely popular with a mainstream audience, and people were eagerly anticipating the resolution of the cliffhanger. And then the first scene they get back is this scene with this doddery bellhop at the hotel, and then he disappears and a giant appears and starts giving out cryptic clues and things like that. And yeah, I mean, I can more so we'll probably talk about this when we get to the return, but there's almost a sense that David Lynch is almost the audience a little bit, in terms of, yeah, I know that you want a resolution to who shot Cooper or who killed Laura Palmer, but instead I'm going to give you 10 minutes of a bellhop nonsense, and then I'm going to give you a giant. So it's very much his sensibility, and I can imagine a lot of people might have switched off at this point if they weren't fully invested in it.
I mean, I won't get too bogged down in the form this week because there is so much plot to get through. But it's the fact that, like we discussed last week, the fact that it was very much like it was designed as a take on soap operas and a kind of like a pseudo spoof kind of thing. But it sort of felt like the original, like the first series was maybe 80% soap, 20% weird batshittery from David Lynch. And I feel like they've just flipped the two over in season 2, part 1. And it's just glorious. The fact that kind of the first thing you see of Leland is the fact that he's got white hair. But we will get there in a second. Like, let's start where you have led us there, which is perfect, which is the bellhop. This is great because... and by the way, spoilers, we're going to talk all about like kind of right up until episode 9 where Laura gets murdered. And then we will cover the rest of the series next episode. But it's the fact that the bellhop, like I was assuming, because Coop's on the ground, dripping, oozing out life, kind of like in a critical condition. And when the bellhop comes in and starts saying to him, It's like, oh, could you just sign for this food? Here's your food here. You all right, fella? Yep, cool. Okay, sign here. Like, I assumed it was a hallucination based on him dying, or maybe even like an agent of the kind of like the Red Room or whatever you call it, you know, the mystical side of things. And he kind of is, but like you find out in future episodes, no, he's just that actually happened. And that is like probably one of my favorite
Yeah,
things. Weird things.
It's almost like frustrating as an audience member because no one is doing the things you expect or want them to be doing, and like, why isn't Coop asking him to get an ambulance, and why isn't this bellhop picking up on the fact that he's been shot? And it's just this thing that David Lynch does where invert your expectations to the point that it's almost daring you to enjoy what you're watching. It gets that frustrating at times, and it's
I just want to jump in that because I find this the weird thing. And it's like, again, I think it's the way I process things. I genuinely do, just to tie it back to my recent diagnosis, because like I found it so weirdly soothing the weirder it got. And it must be to do with the way, like, I find myself drawn to the weird and wonderful. And when the bellhop's in this, I'm going, yeah, cool. Let's see this. And it's like, come on, Lynch, just be as weird as you want. Like if this is the time we're saying, it's great. And I know it's like frustrating.
Yeah, no, I completely enjoy it. But but yeah, I think the thing with Twin Peaks is, you know, we both came to it after it was first on, approaching it now sort of knows what to expect. Like, people know who David Lynch is and what sort of things he made. And so I think perhaps what I'm trying to do is imagine of your regular viewer in the early 90s tuning into it. Like, I mean, you know, compared to The Return, this is pretty tame stuff in terms of weirdness chart, but as you say, it's definitely ramped up from season one. Like, realistically, if you look at season one, there's Coops's dream with the Red Room and the dwarf and all of that, and Sarah Palmer has a few visions which may or may not be prophetic. They may or may not be psychic, but that's it, really. The rest of it is quirkiness that could exist within the real world, whereas this, it's a double length season premiere. This very firmly puts you in the ground of no, there's something very strange going on here now. Like, before we got the Red Room and the denizens of the Red Room and everything, but that was very deliberately framed as a, and this is the first time really we see those characters in the real world, if you like. I know we have, it's not the same characters, but the, you know, again, spoilers, the giant is from as well, but we actually see him interacting with the characters here in a more direct way than what we've had before, and we get a lot more. Even in this first episode, we get a lot more about Bob, who we've had glimpses of up until this point. But this is where, I mean, it finishes with just that horrific sequence where you get after in the coma, Renette Pulaski, and she has this nightmare of Bob, and she's seen him running down a corridor and just screaming, and you know, it foreground character much more than what we had done in season one.
I want to break down just a couple of things you brought up there. And by the way, I do love the fact that for anyone who's wondering, who watches regularly, my room may seem a bit different. It's just because I'm in the middle of packing up for a move, so we've turned it the other way. But I've sort of got the red vibes for the Red Room, and you've kind of got the curtain. So between this, I think we got a bit of a Twin Peaks vibe accidentally here, but a happy accident.
On purpose.
Yeah, on purpose. Yeah, sorry. We completely planned this. This was always meant to be. Sorry, you're right. What was I thinking? Um, but I wanted to get into the giant a bit because I love the fact, and it's like I feel like we should just discuss, because we talked last week about the context of like what you might have now out of Twin Peaks and what you wouldn't get away with now. Like, and I think most of it stands up really well. But it is this interesting thing whereby you are sort of using the giant and the little person to sort of highlight a difference. And I sort of think that's okay,
Yeah.
because like in everyday society, that is not something you see every day. But I don't think it completely others them, other than it's like they are related to this mystic realm. So I'm sort of like a bit torn, because I do think there is a bit, maybe you wouldn't do that now because it is where they're saying they're mystical, but they have got their own agency. They're interesting characters. Like there's some, like, I mean, there's some of my favorite characters are the kind of like the giant and the little person. So I kind of just found that really interesting. And I also love the fact that the giant, he, like, it's almost like there's extra added layers of pointless weirdness which Lynch adds, but I love it. Like, it's like he gets the giant saying, it's like, I'm allowed to tell you 3 things, like, you know, just 3 things, here's your 3 things. And he goes, oh, I'm also permitted to tell you this additional thing. Then why the 3 things shtick? You know, it's like it's weirdly specific. There's 3 things. Like, oh, I almost forgot though. 4th. Oh, just lost you for a second, Jim.
Oh.
You there, buddy?
Oh, sorry, you cut out.
Oh, I was going to say same here. Are you back with us? Having a little bit of connection issue tonight, folks. So please do bear with us.
Yeah.
Hi, Jim. We seem to have.
Yeah, you keep cutting out as well. I mean, I don't know. We'll blame the weather. Like, my connection's looking okay, but obviously somewhere along the way it's because we're talking about the denizens of the Red Room, and we know, you know, they can have an impact on the environment. But yeah, it did occur to me what you brought up there. Like, I think were it there would be diverse casting, which may include people with disabilities. And that, you know, I'm not saying being a giant is a disability, but I think the fact that those characters are very literally othered is maybe something that wouldn't happen now. And so, yeah, like you say, you've got the little person, you've got the giant, you've got the one-armed man who, okay, isn't directly in the Red Room, but he's seen as connected to it. I mean, ironically, the only person that we've seen to come from the Red Room who is sort of fully able-bodied and everything else is Bob, who I think is perhaps the most terrifying creation I've ever seen on television. So,
and as I pointed out,
I think it's interesting.
As I've pointed out, I'm pretty sure he's evil Adam Driver as well.
There
was certainly something to his fate.
He's much scarier than Adam Driver.
Well, I'm not saying he's
Bob,
not
Bob
scary.
just
Like,
terrifies me.
He's clearly, that's why I said evil, like, or scary if you like. But it's like the look of him. He's got something of the Driver about him. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe, yeah, maybe a little bit.
And yeah, I just want to throw this in. It's kind of random, but like I do love. There's a bit which Cooper says. He's talking about the one-armed man. He goes like, in another life, he could have been a. And by the way, I'm going to screw up the quote, but he could have been a priest, a visionary. But in this world, he hides in the shadows and sells shoes. And it's just lovely, like that little bit of poetry. It's great. So we get the clues. I'm going to try and remember these. So the owls are not what they seem.
Yep, that was one of them.
Do you remember the other 2? I'm trying to remember now.
There was without chemicals, he points.
Yes. And there's a 3rd
and
one.
Something about a smile, something about smiling. But that's the one that they get first of all. So it's like a body bag that kind of looks like a grin.
Yes, that's it. But I love all that. I love the little clues and everything. And this is the sort of mysticism that really made Twin Peaks what it's known for. So we'll leave the giant and everyone there for a second. I am kind of going a bit deep on this first episode because I think it does set a lot of stuff up. Then we'll kind of probably dart about a little bit as we did last time. Leland. So when we first seen him, he's suddenly got the white hair. He has gone very suddenly from being very kind of like obviously just a walking study in grief as his wife is, and then suddenly he's singing and dancing all over the place with white hair.
Yeah, I mean, and Ray Wise does amazing as Leland
Great singer
throughout the show. But yeah, that must have been an interesting experience as an actor to go, oh, I've got my first script for season 2. Right, oh, yeah, okay, my hair's turned white and I'm singing a song.
Apparently he loved it. I mean,
I'm sure he did.
Again, spoilers, we're going to get there though, but when he found out that he was going to be leaving the show because he turns out to be the killer, he was kind of really upset because he just really liked the show. He just really loved it. It was just, it must be so wonderful as an actor to play something so free form that you can bring so much to and so many different sides and elements to. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know at what point he was informed that he would be the killer. I suspect not until he read the script for the episode where it's revealed, but it's a believable reveal, and this is something that I've been sitting on, and I've not discussed this in our chat or anything until I was sure that everyone remembered or had the reveal of who the killer was.
Just very quickly, a shout out to Zoe, who is our Diane out in the field in our little group chat talking about this.
And if you go right back to the first episode, and apologies, probably a trigger warning for this. I mean, the whole nature of the murder and what was going on and everything deserves its own trigger warning, I suppose. But right back to that first episode, there's a scene where I think it's either Sheriff Truman or Hawk are talking to Leland in Laura's bedroom, and Leland is sat there and got one of Laura's pillows off the bed and he's holding it over his lap, and it's always just stuck in my mind, given what we find out about him, that perhaps this wasn't a comfort thing. Perhaps he was positioning it there to cover arousal, because we now know, and you know, that is one of them interpretations that you can only really apply after the fact, and I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have been what Ray Wise was going for in that scene, because he wouldn't have known the nature of the relationship that Leland had with Laura. But it's one of those where you can interpret it that way upon a subsequent watch of it. All of which is to say, there are things laid in throughout that when you watch it back, you can see that there was a logical progression.
There are so many moments where when you watch it back, you just read it differently. Like there's a few things which Ray Wise kind of says, which are just peppered throughout, which when you know what's going on, it's like, oh shit, that, and the way he's acting at that moment, that perfectly mirrors that. It's just, it's so great for that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know when exactly he found out, but I know when they went to do the, there's the episode where he's possessed by Bob, which we'll get to in a bit. And apparently they filmed it 3 ways. So they filmed him, they filmed Bob, and they also filmed is it Ben or Jerry, the guy who with the glasses?
Ben, he's the one that they try and lead you to think it might be, but yeah.
So they film all 3 of them, but apparently at that stage, Ray Wise did know that it was him. So I think they might have given him the nod earlier on, because like There's so much in his performance that I know with the script, it's just there anyway, but I think he steers into some bits, but just enough, like just a little enough that you don't twig anything.
Yeah, I mean, what really jumps out at me this time in it is in these early episodes of season 2. Obviously, I know who the killer is because I've watched it several times, but I was thinking, like, this is really obvious. Like, how didn't people have worked it out? And obviously, it's only with hindsight that it is obvious, but yeah, it doesn't feel a cheat when it's revealed who it is.
No, not at all. So next I want to go into oh yeah, and we'll very quickly give a nod to Andy and sorry, I'm going to forget her name, the blonde lady, his girlfriend,
Lucy.
Lucy. Wonderful kind of bit with them when he's basically, like at the end of the last series, it looks like he's kind of just walking away because he's found out that she's pregnant, but it turns out that there's this whole thing where he thinks he can't have children. And so she goes, and she likes to just cover this kind of plot line because it's kind of a bit to itself. But yeah, so she goes after like this other guy who she used to go out with. They have this dinner, and then he goes like, I've thought about what you said about like me being the father of your child. Here's some money for an abortion. I was like, wow, this is oddly topical. This is just so oddly topical.
It is.
And it ends her turning down the abortion because she wants to keep it, which like doesn't obviously stand against any current like want for kind of legalized abortion in America. But it was just weird they were talking about abortion given everything that's going on currently.
Yeah, I have to say I really like the character of Dick who comes in, and
it's great.
I get the sense he was one of them where he was maybe intended to have a smaller role, then they just really liked the actor and the performance because they do give him more and more and more to do. And yeah, he's a great sort of counterpoint to Andy and Lucy, and yeah, that's a nice to have a bit of a lighter storyline running alongside the far darker stuff that we're getting in this early part of the season.
And so far, we're up to the fact that he turns out there was a mistake. He can have kids, but we don't know if the child is his or not. So we'll park that one there. I just wanted to give a quick nod to it because unfortunately we just got so much to cover in this this series. I want to jump now to the guy in the cabin in the woods. I'm going to forget his name. Sorry, the guy who Laura was going to. He had a secret diary of hers.
Oh yes, the what's his name now? It's not
you're meant to be
Cabin
my
in the
whole
Woods,
crux
is
for
it?
names.
I know I'm usually pretty good. Harold.
Harold, that's it. Oh, he was so like he really, for me, just felt like kind of a very kind of incel kind of guy. He was just perfectly creepy, but like you then start to feel a little sorry for him, and then he goes obviously mega creepy again. And it's kind of I think he's the only one I can certainly think of who links Twin Peaks to Red Dwarf, because some might not have picked up on it.
Yeah,
but he actually was Helvota Colonel's right-wing fascist guy in Back to Reality, where it turns out that Lister, like in that version of reality, Lister is a kind of psycho guy, like he's a fascist psycho, and he's one of his henchmen. And I would never put that together if I hadn't look. Oh, he's so good. Yeah. So just bizarre. I'm guessing if it wasn't purposely cast with him because they got an opportunity to, because I bet the Red Dwarf guys were fans of Twin Peaks. I bet they must have just asked him so many questions about it when he came on set.
Oh yeah. He's another good, in a way, he's not a bad red herring. You could believe that he might have done the murder, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, before they meet him, actually, you get that again with the weirdness. You get that scene where Donna meets, she's called Mrs. Tremaine, and her son who's learning to be a magician, and It's just one of them totally bizarre sequences that
Oh, what you mean? You
that they
mean
throw
mini
in there.
David Lynch? Why is that kid
Yes,
dressed as David Lynch? Quite clearly, it's so weird.
I mean
Again,
it is his
I know
it
it's Twin
it,
Peaks.
it is his son. So
I
you
thought it
know,
was. I thought I'd read that, but it's like, I mean, A, he's certainly checked off the old block, and B, they've done his hair like him and everything, so it's not just because it's his son. They've
oh
dressed him
yeah,
like, you know.
yeah. It's
I
not
like.
just because it's his son. Yeah, they've gone. We're going to make you look exactly like your dad.
it's it's just so cool. I love it. I don't know why it's so enticing, but yeah. And it turns out they're basically ghosts at the end, which is just to make it even more weird.
Maybe
Well,
the
that's fine.
ghosts. Maybe there's something else. Who knows? I can't even remember if we see them again. I think we do at some point, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
it's just,
again, just wonderfully kind of like played to have that kind of little bit. I love the fact they had that weird thing of making recordings of everyone, but no one else can see it, and he can't leave the cabin. So it looks like Laura Flynn Boyle. What's her character name again? Sorry, Donna.
Donna.
Donna. Looks like Donna's. I sort of like the fact that she kind of gets the dirt, and she could have just gone away with it and kind of maybe even just pushed him inside the house if she wants to be nice, but she does care enough. Like it kind of they take the time to establish that she's
Yeah,
a decent enough person that
um,
she wouldn't just leave someone there, which is quite nice. So we'll kind of leave that one there. As I say, we're going to jump about a little bit. Where to next? There's just so much going on this. We've got Laura's cousin. I mean, I feel like we have to sort of do a bit of a time jump suddenly. Actually, we'll go for Monsieur Renault, who's played by Michael Parks, and I absolutely love him in this as well. Like I like the fact that like because Bob. Does Bob infest him? No, Bob infests the one-armed man, and he
no.
yeah, but
Well,
he does.
I don't think Bob is in the one-armed man. I think the little person is in the one-armed man.
Yeah, because he kind of ends up working towards the good, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think again there's more of that to come when we get to the season 2 finale. But no, I mean Bob, to my knowledge, up until this point, has only possessed land that we know of.
Okay. Well, okay. What we'll do? We'll jump to the kind of the raid on One Eye Jacks because that's good. Actually, no. So
Yeah,
sorry. Before that, I do have to give a shout out to how wonderfully creepy, and I like the fact they do kind of use masks and stuff when they've got again, I'm going to forget it's Ben, isn't it? Like who's the dad?
yeah,
Yeah, and his daughter, like who's decided to go on undercover to help Coop, and Coop misses the note, and when she gets on the phone with him, he doesn't quite kind of get what's going on, and so she ends up basically stuck in a whorehouse with her dad creeping on her.
yeah. That was one of the cliffhangers we didn't mention at the end of the last season. That was how's Audrey going to get out of this situation, and they play it pretty much as the bedroom farce, don't they? Like she's wearing the mask, and she's like, "Oh, get away!" And he's like, "Oh, I like that." It's they
But
play
like,
that one more for laughs than creepiness, which there's enough creepiness elsewhere in the episode, I think.
true, but it's like, and it's lovely how that, like, again, I'll kind of park this in a second, but it's like, it's lovely how that kind of, which is a sort of farcical scene, leads to the confession, which gets him sort of like looking like he's Laura's killer. Like it adds to his red herring by
Yeah.
what he does confess. But we'll jump on that in a second. But yeah, the raid on One Eye Jacks. So Coop basically realizes that sorry, remind me of her character name. Fuck, I really suck at names.
Oh, sorry. Did we get a bit of disconnection there? Audrey Horn, the character's
Audrey
name.
Horn, that's it. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, Audrey. So Coop finds out that Audrey is stuck at One Eye Jacks. he knows that there's some stuff going on there, and I love the fact that the owls give him the clue at this bit as to where he's going, which is really nice.
Yeah, and they have to use the Bookhouse Boys instead of an official raid. But it's worth pointing out that the Bookhouse Boys has all of the sheriff's department in it, so it's not that different from the actual sheriffs. It's like, well, we've got all the sheriffs and we've got Big Ed and James. Like, Big Ed, maybe. James, you don't need. What I'm saying is the Bookhouse Boys are not that much better than the sheriff's department, really.
And it's sort of like that Deep Space Nine meme where it's like Deep Space Nine working at 100% efficiency. It's got the full cast photo. Here's it working 99% efficiency. It's blacked out everyone else apart from O'Brien. It's kind of the same. Like the sheriffs are 99% of that particular gang. Well, Coop and the sheriff. But yeah, it's the again names. The husband who's gone to jail of the woman in the diner who owns the diner.
Hank.
I do like the fact that it turns out that he's an agent as well, like, or he's working with the police. You get this wonderful thing in season 2 where it's sort of like everyone. It reminds me of this thing they used to say on Babylon 5, like as a weird reference to pull from. Jakar says like no one here is exactly who they seems. And it feels like that's very much season 2 of Twin Peaks. So you find out Albert's actually a pacifist, and suddenly recontextualizes that first scene which he's in, or the scenes he's in season 1. Yeah, he might be a smart ass git, but he's a pacifist. That's why he was so angered and want to bring up charges on someone punching him, not because through hate, but because he believes in pacifism. So that was lovely. And he's like he goes and gives a kiss to the sheriff.
Yeah.
It's like it's okay, I forgive you, and I hope you find peace inside your heart. And it's lovely. And you suddenly love him.
That's another role that must have been such good to play, Albert, because he, like you say, he gets to do. When we first see him, he comes across as just this by the book arsehole, and then he does this twist. Oh, I'm a pacifist. And that's playing while he's talking about that. It's just, it's funny.
So anyway, sorry, I went on tangent, but it's nice to have the kind of the diner woman's husband.
Hank is the diner woman's husband.
Hank, damn it.
Who's got out of jail.
Very tired getting ready for my play, which is on next week. Blue Remembered Hills, Monday to Saturday. Look up Masters Theatre. Anyway, so like it is nice to have him kind of have the twist as well. So Hank is like, he just seems so kind of like such a creepy git in the first series, and it turns out he's actually been working all this stuff. He is actually a stand-up guy. He is trying to work to be better than he is, which I really like. But you get the right raid on One-Eyed Jacks. You managed to get out Ben's daughter okay, and everything kind of like then I love that then leads towards the well, you got that, and then you do get the scene where Ben's daughter basically challenges him and says, what are you like, you own One-Eyed Jacks, how long have you owned it for? What the hell's happening there? Like you tried it on with me, so I'll tell Mum if you don't stop fucking around and tell me what's going on. And he reveals that he did sleep with Laura. So it's like the amount they used to set him up is really nice. Sorry, did you want to? I'll hand over to you on that one before I kind of go to the next bit.
Yeah, I like the raid on One-Eyed Jacks because Twin Peaks doesn't often do. That's the closest to save by throwing a knife at them right at the end. So it's nice to sort of, before they settle down to the next few episodes are going to be really dark. It's quite nice to have a bit of an action sequence going on there, and a bit of a win for the good guys that they rescue Audrey.
Yeah, that's really nice. And it's the fact that those two kind of scenes lead into, you then get the trial scene, which of course just takes place in the bar, because where else would you in Twin
Of
Peaks?
course.
And there's even a bit where the judge goes, "Can I see you two at the bar?" And he orders some cocktails. it's perfect.
It's.
I almost forgot you bring in as well Lynch himself. I forget his character name, surprisingly.
Gordon Cole.
Gordon Cole, because he's only been in a couple of scenes up to where I watched, and it's just so lovely. Because if nothing else, even the return, I think, happened at the perfect time, because you can have his character back in with that same ear device that he's got, because his hearing's blown out. And I love the fact that he's going like, "Goop, I think we should meet in your office." And the sheriff just goes, I've heard everything you can see. It's like, "Yeah, why don't you come in?" "I think the sheriff should join us." It's just all just brilliant. And I know it's just a cheap joke at not being able to hear, but it's great. And in the return, when you've got the same sort of device he's using to hear, if you just set that another year or two later, he would have just had needed to add a cochlear implant, because anyone could get one of those now.
Yeah, true. I mean, I think his hearing is a bit better in the return, to reflect the improvements in technology. But yeah, when we get it at this point, I mean, you could argue, okay, the creator, writer, director giving himself a role in it, but it works, and he's great, and he adds to the texture of it all.
He does. So anyway, sorry, I digressed a little bit, but I did rather enjoy that. But I do love the bit in the trial scene as well. You've got the sheriff who, sorry, not the sheriff, the judge, who basically calls him to one side and goes, "Do you think this is going to be helpful if we do this or that?" It's like he's basically asking the law what he should do as the judge, which is like, shall we say some of this seems to, in the way that Twin Peaks does reflect that kind of soap opera thing, it sort of, I think, also sometimes reflects some real life kind of like tropes of a small town. So you have got the fact in a small town, I think there's something nice about everyone knows each other and everyone can look out for each other, but also you do get this side of things whereby someone just has a little chat over like, "Yeah, what should we do about this legal case?" It's like, probably that's not ideal.
Yeah, I mean, it's and I suppose if you're looking at it a little bit metatextually, this is another clue, really, that Leland is going to be revealed to be the murderer, because if he hadn't been, they would have had to have done something with the storyline about him having murdered a guy in a hospital. So it's almost like, okay, we'll say he's got bail because we're gonna trust me, he's not here in a couple of episodes, so don't worry. We don't need to worry about that. Let's just put that to one side.
And man, so you get not Leland, sorry. You get Ben, who is accused of being the murderer. You get this wonderful scene with him and Jerry as his shyster lawyer, which is just so much fun.
Yes.
I don't think there's much more I need to say on that. It's just, I love the fact that Coop just completely destroys him and goes like, "Yeah, you can't serve as a lawyer in, like, you've been disbarred in 4 different states. You've had like 3 successful cases. Yeah, sure, let's go for it. You're a lawyer, whatever." It's really nice how he kind of basically destroys him, and just puts him in his place.
Yeah.
But that scene's a lot of fun, and it does lead to where you then also get Coop and the sheriff telling Leland that his daughter's been killed, where he kind of like has to pretend like he cares, and he's like secretly basically laughing at the whole thing. And he's just had a musical number just before that, and you have another scene whereby Leland's driving with the corpse in the car, and he like sorry, we haven't got that yet. Actually, no, I'll park that one. Park the car for a second. And you just suddenly start kind of getting to dial up the kind of creepiness and you now start to get some really harrowing scenes. So it's episode 7 where you kind of get the turn and you get the reveal. We've established that Leland knew Bob as a child, which is where the kind of like darkness entered him, I guess.
Yeah, I think the implication is that Bob, or presumably someone who was being inhabited by Bob, lived in a house opposite Leland as a child, and Bob, if we're accepting that Bob is a spirit that can possess people, which let's roll with that. Then Bob possessed Leland at a very young age and has been sort of piggybacking on his consciousness ever since then, and taking direct control at certain times to murder people effectively. Before we get to the Leland reveal, actually, I just want to shout out the earlier Bob scene, which I think's in the second episode, where first of all you get this ludicrous scene where it's James and Maddie and Donna and they're singing this love song, which is diabolical. And that finishes, and then it goes to Maddie has this vision of Bob, and the camera's completely locked off, and it's filming this perspective of there's a table, behind that there's a sofa, behind that there's kind of a window thing, a divider to another room, and you see Bob move past in the background, and then he starts crawling towards the camera, and because of the forced perspective, it looks like Bob's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as he moves towards the camera. And I legitimately think that is one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in film or and I think that it's placed after the ludicrous music number to heighten that, because it almost invites you to laugh at this melodramatic love song that's awful, and then it hits you with this just absolutely horrific scene, which leads us on to the next horrific scene, which is when Leland is revealed as the killer, which is, oh god.
Isn't and I'm not sure of the order of this, so I'm going to quickly just reference this as well. The bit where Ben is being interrogated as well, and there's a bit where Cooper says all this stuff about kind of like Laura's murder, and it's like, oh, you just want her, and he talks about kind of like how she was attacked, all this stuff, and all I could think of, and I raised this because this will come up in a minute. All I can think of, I had this sudden feeling like kind of all throughout we've established basically it's this feeling like Coop's got this relationship to and with Laura beyond the grave. And I was thinking, it's like, wow, and it's so weird that they've never met. And then we sort of find out they have, and that Laura was aware of him. And that really was just blew my mind. I love the fact that in her dreams that she, she saw Coop as an old man and they communicated, and Coop has that dream later. That is just such a wonderful concept. The idea that it sort of takes Coop from being obsessed with her, which could go a little bit creepy. And there is a bit where they kiss. I know she's an older actor and everything, but it's sort of like, yeah, she is meant to be 18. But okay, we'll sort of gloss over that a little bit. Because it's the fact they're both there, though. There's something which just is just kind of magical about that, even though it's under the most horrific circumstances. And she knows, like, that means she knew she was going to get killed by her dad. Just it blew my mind, that bit. And like,
I mean, when we get to the film Fire Walk with Me, all of this is sort of explored a lot more there. But yeah, there's a lot of layers to what's going on and how much Laura knew about her situation and everything.
It's just wonderful. But yeah, sorry, we will go forward. you do then get the reveal that Leland's the murderer. What's kind of interesting, because I actually, even watching this back, this is what I thought the first time, and I do actually remember now when I was watching the first time with my ex, I remember saying to her, "Oh, like so Leland's most probably the murderer." She goes, "No, he clearly is. Like he's just murdered Laura's cousin, which we'll talk about in a second." But I'm like, well, yeah, but it doesn't mean that he necessarily was the one to kill Laura, because if Bob is going around possessing people, isn't it possible he kind of was infecting someone else as well? Or is that weird of
That's a
me?
good
I don't
point.
know. Because like everyone else seems to,
No,
like
it's
everyone else we talked to about it seems to have said they've just assumed at that stage that he's the like. Well, they know he's the murderer, if you will. I don't know.
yeah, it's a very good point actually. I suppose you don't know that he killed Laura until until he actually confesses to it 2 episodes later. But I think you meant to infer that he did
Yeah, I mean, I think
from
I've just
the way it plays out is that basically we see that Leland is possessed by Bob, and we see Bob/Leland kill Maddie. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it's directly stated at that point that he also killed Laura. It's just left to us to interpret that that is the intent of that reveal.
because you sort of like, I mean, I think it's just I do take certain things literally, but it's like I think it would be, it's kind of interesting. If they wanted to, they could have done a mega twist of setting someone up to be the murderer
Yeah, they
because
could
they're
have done.
possessed by Bob to kill someone else, but someone else was possessed to him at the time. But anyway, how they land it was absolutely perfect. There is the murder scene where Leland, you've seen him getting more and more creepy, more and more obviously being consumed by Bob. There's the bit where the giant, actually, sorry, I do have to cover this very quickly first. The giant, like they're in the bar listening to the music on stage, clearly by the woman who did the theme tune. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And I love the fact that just suddenly everything pauses for everyone but Coop, and there's a spotlight on Coop, and suddenly the giant's on stage. What's happened before is happening again. And that's where the bellhop comes back in. And as the murder's happening, like, just after we've seen the murder, he goes like, yeah, I'm sorry for your loss, basically. And it's just like, so, and I'm like, so the bellhop, bellhop is really there? Like, I mean, I think he was in another scene earlier as well, but I'm like, so the bellhop's there? So he was there. Like, that was the moment when I was like, so he was there asking for him to sign the check. But he's obviously an agent of the Red Room as well. So it's like, I love the fact that he's a walker between the two worlds, basically.
And it's like, the giant apologizes, but maybe you should have given him less cryptic clues, Mr. Giant. Maybe he might have solved it a little bit earlier if you'd, without chemicals, heat points and stuff. I think that's a little bit on the giant.
No, you say that, Jim. He was only permitted to tell him 3 things. Oh, yeah, and the other thing. So 3 things and the other thing.
Well,
that's all he's allowed to say.
Yeah, exactly.
And they even get this. And the fact that the thing that tips off Cooper in a minute is the fact that he remembers the little person dancing, and that's what makes him think of Leland. I love that as that's such a kind of like subtle clue to call back to. It's just great. But sorry, get to the murder of Laura's cousin. It's Maddie, isn't Maddie? The cousin?
Maddie, yeah.
Yeah, Maddie. My God, I don't think I've seen a more brutal scene on TV. He doesn't just kill her, he destroys her. And the fact that you've got Leland going just
awful.
Insane, and then you see Bob just getting such glee, and he's just that actor. I mean, Bob is horrific, but that actor is amazing. Like, the way he contorts his face is just it's stunning.
It's completely animalistic when you done it. It's just awful. It feels like a transgression. Like, even though we're used to seeing violence on TV and things like that, it genuinely shocking the way it's done, and it feels like something you shouldn't be seeing, which is difficult to pull off on in any form of visual media, really. With and even more so from where we're sat now, 20 odd years later, 30 years later, to have something that we can watch that's this old that is still shocking to watch shows how well made it was.
I mean, I messaged you straight afterwards, going, it's like, it's the first time I've watched something on TV where I feel like I should be reporting something to the police after. Like it was that level of kind of shocking feeling, and the fact that I believe that there is some blood in this scene. However, if it was blood and gore, that wouldn't. I don't think that would have stood the test of time and felt as shocking now as to just
not
throw her about. Like it's so visceral the way he throws her, and bash her head, and then like they don't kill her in one smooth motion. It's difficult.
No.
It's kind of brutal the way he does it,
and the way he hits her, like it's not often that you would see in film or TV a male character hitting a female character with a closed fist in the face. Like that still feels shocking to see.
Yeah. So we do see her, as I say, I think the only way to describe it is destroyed by Leland. And then it does lead to, again, it's that way of like they do of kind of this awful, shocking scene. You get, and when it does go back to the bar and you see Laura Flynn Boyle's character reacting to it and just kind of breaking apart, and Coop just goes dead-eyed looking at, comprehending what's happened. Just plaudits all around for wonderful acting. And then there's that scene where like they're on the road after the murder, and is this the bit where I think this is the bit where you get, well, sorry, I didn't want to reference the fact that you get Laura's cousin in the body bag, and it kind of perfectly mirrors the opening shot to the first episode. That's really nicely done. And then you've got Leland driving along and going like he's got the body in the back, and Coop's like, sorry, we're just in the middle of something right now, and he's about to clock him around the head and kill him. And he's just tucking the leg back into the thing, and it's sort of like you laugh, but then you almost feel a bit guilty for laughing because it was so brutal a scene where you saw him murdered, not like it was
exactly it plays with that, does it? It's inviting you to laugh at the absurdity of the situation, but not letting you forget what's happened up to that point.
And I love the fact that Albert's the one to sort of cheerlead Coop on, to say it's like whatever vision quest, whatever route you've got to do, whatever path your journey takes you on, you've got to get this. You've got to get this done today. Do what you need to. And everyone coalesces around this page of like, right, we've seen some weird shit over the years in Twin Peaks, but this is beyond. Coop, do your thing. Like it feels like everyone just defers to Coop, and it's so wonderful. And I think that only works because you've seen over the course of from the first episode of Coop just sort of belonging in this town, even though he's not from it.
Yeah, it's almost it feels well paced rewatching it, but there is almost this sense of, right, we've got to solve the murder now. And I don't know if that's a bit of a meta commentary that they were going for, because you have the characters vocalizing it like, right, we need to get this sorted now. And that I'm talking about episode 9, which is where they catch Leland.
Yeah, and I do love the way they do it, that they go to the bar again. They get Ben, like they take him away. They kind of do the setup for Leland so that it looks like it's like, oh, and you might want to take Leland along as your lawyer. And it's a wonderful thing of like, it sort of works as a plan, but the way he says it is I think metatextual, as you say, I think there is a suggestion of like that largesse of the way they deliver lines. Sometimes they signpost things in soap operas. I think they're definitely doing a nod to that. It's like, oh, and why didn't you take Leland along as your lawyer? The way he says it is very, yeah.
And it's
Enlarged.
also playing on that sort of that trope of like detective fiction where it's like we're going to get all the suspects together in one building and do our denouement of who's actually done it, but it all works. Like you're that invested in it by this point, and obviously we the audience know who it is at this point, so it doesn't have that thing where the audience is waiting for the reveal. It's you're waiting to see whether Cooper's worked it out or not at this point, and that's where the tension is created. Like, has he got the right man?
Oh, and it's that bit where Coop kind of like does the misdirect, so he kind of like puts Ben Cell and then kind of swaps him over for Leland, basically just pushes him in and closes the door. And well, I'm going to call him Bob at this stage because it's like it's completely Bob. It's the full Bob. You get the feeling that there is maybe moments where you see a little bit of Leland coming through even before this. This is pure Bob. Like Bob is totally in control, and Bob, the way he taunts them. And credit to the guy who plays Bob.
Yeah.
Credit to the guy who plays Leland Ray Wise. Both of their performances as Bob are amazing. Oh, and you've referenced it. I don't know if we said it on the last episode, but you've certainly referenced it in our little group chat about this. That Bob stands for Beware of Bob, which is just glorious in itself. I just want to chuck that in there, just in case we haven't mentioned it. And it's like, he's going to like, Leland's going to come back in a minute and he is going to break, but only for a moment. And it's like, it's just.
Yeah, that's awful because you do get this heartbreaking scene with Leland. He realizes what Bob has been using him to do. And, you get quite a tender scene where Cooper's sort of cradling Leland as he dies. It's just so well done and it's so dramatic and it's just fantastically well done.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking because you've gone for this huge scene where Bob is just going nuts and like Bob basically gets Leland killed. And then, like you say, it's just it's Coop holding him in his arms, and it's almost like Coop becomes his confessor. It's like, it's like you're absolved of your sins. You can go to the afterlife now. It's like thank fuck you don't have to live with this. Like you not only killed Laura, but then you killed her cousin because she looks like her and she kind of represents her in a way. Man, it just kind of broke me in the best possible way. It was just so good and so much in 3 episodes, because I feel like it's from the second half of the 7th episode to the end of the 9th episode is all a ramp up to this moment.
Yeah, it is.
I think
it takes on such a sense of momentum at that point that you're barreling towards this conclusion.
Yeah, obviously there's lots of plot lines we haven't covered, lots of things. You've got the actually let's do a quick roundup of some other stuff. So you get the fact that the guy in the woods ends up getting taken away because he goes psycho and tries to try to kill them up in the woods because they've got Laura's diary. So he turns out to be a nut job.
He hangs himself, doesn't he? They find him.
No, sorry. Pardon me, hangs himself, sorry. But they resolve that thing so they get away from him.
Yeah, we've got Josie turning out to be a strongly implied complicit in her husband's death.
Yes.
We've got Catherine pretending to be Mr. Tajimura.
Speaking of things we might not get these
probably
days.
Wouldn't do now. Yeah. Though it does lead to that really funny scene where she reveals who she is to Pete, and she's doing the Mr. Tajimura voice, and I am strangely attracted to you, and Pete's like, what?
Oh, and
Yeah,
she gets which I'm sure will come up in the episodes coming up. She gets Ben to sign over the wood mill
yes,
in exchange for saying that she was with him that night. Totally screwing him over another time. Like, I know he's not
yeah,
exactly a nice guy, but it's sort of like he sort of gets screwed over for all the things he didn't do, not for the ones he did, really.
yes, exactly. And then we've got Bobby and Shelley, because
Yeah.
Leo Johnson shot by Hank last season. He's sort of in a vegetative state, and they decide, right, we're gonna claim disability money for it. And yeah, not the most compelling storyline for them too, but
But it's kind of funny that then ends up with them being more broke because they've done that. Because the money is
yes,
spent.
yeah,
I think there was a so message. I don't know if that's the correct term, but I think there was a nice little kind of like social commentary here about kind of like when people
mm,
say about like I don't know what the kind of atmosphere in America was towards disabled people, but there is such a thing sometimes of like, oh God, they're getting something I'm not, like, because they get these added benefits and stuff. And it really shows that it's like once the insurance companies in America have taken their cut, the money which is actually left to
yeah,
spend on that disabled person means that the people who are looking after them end up spending more money than they're getting in from those benefits. And it just I really
exactly,
did like that with it, and it's certainly, you couldn't say hit you over the head with it, but it was definitely all there. So I thought that was
yeah.
nice.
And we've also got Nadine, who, after
Yes,
recovering from her coma, now believes herself to be a teenager. But more of that next time, because that is a season-long story arc. So we've not even really started with that at this point.
I love when they do that though. It's like they did it. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Regarding Henry with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, a long time ago.
So essentially, he's kind of like got a bad relationship with his wife. He's having an affair, but you don't discover all that at the beginning. You just see him, and then he has
Mm,
a brain injury and he loses memory. He kind of like I just want to put this the correct way, but he kind of loses faculty. So he goes from this kind of real arsehole kind of character who, even though you don't see all these bits, he enjoys life, like in the way some people with mental differences do enjoy life more, because they just live for life for the moment, and he starts doing that. And he's like, he asked for Ritz at the time, and they think he means Ritz crackers. It turns out the Ritz is where he was having an affair with this
that's
woman.
it.
But it ends with him
Yes, I
having this
remember that.
wonderful relationship with his wife and appreciating his life more. And I sort of love it when they kind of play with that idea. So like here you see the same thing when she's lost her memory, she kind of suddenly wants to make out and have a good time with her husband, who she was
Yeah,
always just going at before, and like he was having an affair. And I love kind of playing with those ideas. Anyway, that was a long ass way of saying that, but it just reminded me of that. And
yeah.
the other obvious reference, of course, is Harold from Neighbours. But come on, like we all know that
Mm,
one. He lost his memory.
that
Yeah,
was a
I just
classic
really love that.
storyline.
Oh, it was. And you get this lovely wrap up. I think we should wrap up on this. It's where you did get suddenly Don S. Davis is back. I don't know, like he must have had some other filming commitments because he disappears for the series up until now.
Mm,
And again, in the way that no one's what they seem, they've already kind of established this character as kind of quite right wing, but he's also kind of quite empathetic and everything. Here in this scene, he just talks about how there's more dreamt of in heaven and earth than in your philosophy, Horatio. Like that,
yes, pretty much.
and I just love that little scene between him, Hawk, and Coop. And I think is Albert there as well? I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, Albert's there as well, and it finishes on this note of maybe Bob's still out there, and we get a
Oh, no, Hawk.
creepy owl,
Oh, sorry, Owl. Sorry, not
which,
Hawk.
as we know, the owls are not what they seem. But and it could have. this could have been the series finale, I think, but ultimately it isn't. What's happened there? Why am I suddenly the only person on the show? I have no idea what's going on. So, yeah. Oh well, this is the Dr. Squee show without Dr. Squee. I don't know exactly what he's done here. He seems to have just removed himself the thing, but I'll continue to monologue until normal service is resumed.
Hello, sorry about that. Basically, I've got a wireless mouse, and it where I've moved everything about, it doesn't seem to like anything I put on now. So it's suddenly zipped up and removed me from the stream. So that was fun. I'm back now.
That's okay. I just monologued for a while, but
Thank you.
yeah. What I was saying is they could have ended the whole show right there. I think yes, there'd have been a few dangling threads with the subplots, but it would have still been a good wrap up to everything. And I think the next discussion we have is going to be really interesting because it's going to be about what do you do with a show that's premised around a central mystery.
Mm.
The studio mandates that you must solve that mystery, but then what do you do? And
I mean,
they try a few different things before settling on where they're going to go with it. And I'm looking forward to talking about that.
yeah, me too. I mean, I think for me, it's the fact that I think with those last 3 episodes, you so could have like. I mean, I love them exactly how they like. I'm so glad they didn't expand them out because you could have, and maybe they still were electric and still kind of like kept you on. Maybe you could have had Leland, where we know he's the murderer, but they don't for a while. However, as it sits, the way they've wrapped it up, because the danger is you then do eke it out and it just loses it and it kind of ends in a very unsatisfying way. Whereas this, as the end to Laura Palmer's story, is amazing. It's I mean, well, end for now anyway. We won't get into like we'll firewalk with me and return with her later, but at this stage, this is the end to her story, and it's so well done. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, like you say, like what they do with a show after its initial premise is done. I remember, sorry, it just makes me bizarrely think of Sliders, where they sort of like slowly but surely finish the storyline where they're trying to get home, and then it's sort of like by the end, you have no idea why they're sliding. It's just weird, but at least even though Twin Peaks, again, I haven't watched the episodes back, but to my memory and from what you've said, it kind of loses away a bit. But then, yeah, right at the end, I love the way they wrap it up. But we will get to that next time when we reopen the files.
There is, we didn't mention it, but right at the start of this season, they mention Cooper's old partner, Wyndham Earl. So that's a seed that's going to be developed over the next part of the season. So looking forward to talking about that.
Oh yeah, and they even mentioned they suggest that Bob relates back to his it's Wyoming. There's a previous case which they keep on bringing up.
Yeah, Pittsburgh maybe or something. I can't remember.
But yeah, I love the fact that the suggestion is that Bob's been like, it's not a coincidence that Coop feels like he's from here and feels like a kinship to these people. It feels like it was predestined. I love that idea because that's certainly how it felt with Coop all the way through, that he was always meant to go here. He was always part of Twin Peaks somehow, even before he knew the place existed. And am I right in saying the Windermere is played by a certain famous pop star of the time? Is that the same character?
No, that's a different character.
Pardon me. I'm relating to Bowie. I don't know why I'm acting so coy. Bowie, you all know he's in there.
You're thinking of Philip Jeffries that we'll meet for the first time in Firewalk with Me.
Okay, cool. We will get back to that at the time, though. Thank you very much, Jim. Oh my god! Not only have I really enjoyed this first half of first part of season 2 of Twin Peaks, I think some of the finest TV that ever was. I will go that high, especially those last 3
I'd
episodes.
agree.
But to be able to talk to you about it, my buddy, always a pleasure, sir. And there's no one I'd rather break down these episodes with.
Thank you very much. Yeah, look forward to covering the rest of it.
So we're going to take a break next week. So sorry, I don't think I've mentioned it at all on social media anywhere, but I do happen to be playing the next week. So if you're in the Southampton area,
Oh,
we're going from Monday to Saturday. It's the Masquers Theatre. It's Blue Remembered Hills, where adults play children, which is why I probably didn't need to completely bold myself, but why I got rid of the beard, certainly. And I was like, so it means I don't have to do my hair before going on. So it's adults playing kids in the Forest of Dean, and they're left unsupervised. There's some real fun, real hijinks, but it's a Dennis Potter play. So as you might predict, there is some darkness and sinister doings that are happening to our young protagonist too. So get your tickets at Maskers Theatre. Just put Maskers Theatre Southampton and Blue Remembered Hills, and it will take you there. So thank you. But if not, we will be back in a couple of weeks with the last part of the original run of Twin Peaks.
yeah.
I've been Special Agent Squee. With me, of course, has been
Deputy Jim.
And until next time, remember, the owls lie. Is the owls lie? Should really have had that in the back
They're
better.
not what they seem.
Yeah, the owls are not what they seem. And be kind.